Our Department of Education Acquisition Regulations Special Contracting Methods 3417-1 Multi-Year Contract 104 General Head Contracting Authority Agent with the heads of the purpose of FAR 17104B 3417-2 with the options 204 contracts except with the otherwise provided the law with the contract period with exceed 5-year limitations specified by the FAR 17204E must be approved. The contracting authority individual contracts and senior procurement of the executive of the class of the contracts 207 for the exercise of the option. Federal government may accept the price for the production offered for the contract with the time of the term of the current contract performed with the accepted the price reduction of the offer of the contract will not accept the renegotiate and identify and so part that were not initiated with the request of the federal government. If the contract or provision allow with the option extra for the specified the time frame after the funds becoming available, then must also spread the day with the funds becoming available with the actual date of funds becoming available to the contractor officer for the obligation. 3417-5 or agency acquisition 501 general with no other federal department or agency might purchase property to serve with the done with the contractor self with the stout or administrative by the federal student aid unless the purchase of the approved of the senior procurement executive with the requesting of federal department agency 3417-17 modular contracting 700 modular contracting federal student aid may incremental with the conduct with the of the procurement of the amount of overall so each amount must be with itself with its own self with the useful with the combination with the earlier procurement amount with the service model may be sure with the on sold with the be useful with the under the following circumstances. 1. Competitive with the procedure with the award of the grant contract with the first system module with the solicitation first module, including the following general description and terror systems will be sufficient to provide potential offer the reasonable notes with the general scope of the future models. 2. For the other sufficient information enable the officer to make an informed business decision. Submit offer for the first module with the 3 for the statement of perceived the sole source of the waiting the follow on the models could be for the subsequent awards unreserved. Part 3419 Small Business Programs 3419-2 Policies 201 General Policy 201-70 Office of the Small with the Disadvantaged Business Utilization Office of the Small with the Disadvantaged Business Utilization of the Profit Facility Implementing Small Business Act Scrum Fires Part 19201 the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization of the Developed Rule of the Policy Procedure with the Guideline for the Effective Administrative of the Department of Education Small Business Program 419-5 the Small Business Total Set aside with the Partial Set aside with the Reserve 502 setting aside with the acquisition 502 with 8 rejecting small administrative with the recommendation senior procurement executive with the age ahead for the purpose of the FAR 19502 502 with the deciding method of the conducting set aside with the specified acquisition procedure with the describing the FAR's Part 13 procurement of non-commercial service to federal student aid requirements may be under the following circumstances with the procurement that doesn't exceed $1 million procurement conduct with a small business set aside with the presuming the section 15A the small business act price charge supplied with associated with the service expected will be less than 20% of the total contract private procurement combined with the procurement is not constructive with the subpart 3419A with the contract with small business administration with the 8A program some of the 3419A 810 small business appeals small business administration appeal with the senior procurement executive agency with the head of the purpose as far as 19810 3419-812 the contractor administrator with the head contracting authority agency for the purpose as far as 19812D or 3422 application of labor law of the acquisition of labor laws to government acquisition 3422 with 10 with the scope of the contract labor standard of 1002 statutory executive order requirements 1002 general 1002-1 general with a consistent with the Title 29 CFR 4145 5-year limitation set up for the scope of the Contracting Act of the 1965 and then with the scope of the Contact Act if apply with each of the period of the contracting individual but not competitively period based over the option per period accordingly no contract with the subject of the Contract Act even the Department of Education will have a base period or option period that exceeds 5 years. Or 3424 Protection of Privacy Freedom of Information Act, 3424-1 Protection of Individual Privacy Procedures. If the Privacy Act of 1974 apply with the contract officer must specify with the contract with the disposition made with the system with the record with the completion of the form with the, for example, the contract may require with the contract to complete with the destroy with the record room with a personal return, fires to turn for the record or over the education of the department at work, keep the records but intake with a certain measure for the keep of the records confidential protection of the individual privacy. If the notice of the system of the records if the not been published with the federal register of the contract that may proceed with the acquisition but not award of the contract until the notice of the publish of the list of the contract or author that determines in writing with a portion of the contract must proceed with the maintain with the information subject to the Privacy Act. But in this case, the contracting officer may award the contract authorizing performance only with those portions not subject to the Privacy Act after the notice of the publish effect with the authorized performance of the remainder of the contract. 342170 Protection of Human Subjects. In the section research being with the systematic investigation include the research with the development, the testing, evaluation with the design with the development, the contribution with the generalized knowledge with the 34 CFR 97 102 with the D with the research with the consider with the involved with the human subject, when the research obtained with the information of the living individual through the intervention of the interaction with the individual obtains personally identifiable with the private information with the above the individual some categories of the research except in accordance with the Title 34 CFR Part 97 of the contracting officer may ensure with the provision 3452 22471 for the research activities involved with human subject and solicitation with the result of the contract that include with the likelihood to include with the research activities and with the human subject covered in Title 34 CFR Part 97. Contracting officer must ensure the cost of 3452 22472 with the research activities involved with the human subject and solicitation include with the provision of 3452 22471 and for the research activities involved with the human subjects and in a result of the contractor 3424-2 with the Freedom of Information Act Authority 201 Department Regulations implementing Freedom of Information Act with the Title 5 U.S. Standard Code 552 with the Title 34 CFR Part 5 3424-203 Policy with the Department of Policy with the release of all information incorporated within the contract with the document as a result of the performance of the contract public under the freedom of information with the relief of the withholding with the documents with the requested will be made on a case-to-case basis with the contract and officer must provide with the offer with the respect with the contract with the possibility with the submission of the may be relief of the Freedom of Information Act with the notwithstanding with any of the restrictions that are included in the time of the proposal submission class with a substantial with the same with it is with the clause of 3452 22470 with the release of information Freedom of Information Act must include all of the solicitation contracts 3424 of the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act 701 support implementation Family Education Rights and Privacy Act additional Family Education Rights and Privacy Act implementation regulations found in the Title 34 CFR Part 99 702 with the policy with the Department of Policy with the designated with the authorized representative for the purpose of complying with the Federal and Family Education Rights of the Privacy Act. Any contractor will conduct with the receipt of the act, sex of the personal with identifiable information to with the education right with the connection with the content with the audit evaluation stay with the complying with the review and the federal law enforcement activity. The department will not notify such with the contract with the prior to war with the during the contract performance of their obligation to protect with the student privacy with the complying with the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act with the department will incorporate with the all relevant solicitation content with the provision clause with the need to implement Family Education Rights and Privacy of the requirements of the aforementioned policy that do not apply for the federal student aid with the contract with the obligation for origination, servicing, collection with the student financial aid provided. Such contracts do not include with the tasking with the contact with the audit evaluation instead of the compliance review and the other enforcement activity. 703 proceed with the during the acquisition plan with the acquiring activity consultation with the department senior agency, the official with the privacy with the director with the student privacy policy with the office of the director. It must receive review requirement to determine the contract with the department and share with the personal identifying with the identification with the student with the education record with the contract with the author right with the contract with the collective with the personal identification from student's education record purpose of the conducting study evaluation on the federally supported education program for federal legal requirements that relate in such education program. The acquiring activity must notify with the contracting officer of the termination 704 contract clause. Contractor author must ensure the contract clause with the 3452 22473 all solicitation contracts include the acquisition commercial private or commercial services. Acquiring activity provided with a notification contractor will collect with the receipt of the personal identification number, student education records with the carry out the audit of the evaluation study compliant with the review other federal law enforcement activity on behalf of the department. Contractor must fill out with the paragraph B with the clause of the 3452 22473 with the type of the personal identification item identified to be collected and accessed by the contractor. 3425 Foreign Acquisition, 3425-1 Buying American Supplies 103 Exemption Head Contracting Authority approved with the determination for 24 103B2. Alright, 3427 of the patent data copyrights. Rights into the data copyrights, 3427 of the 409 solicitor for the contract clause. Contracting officer must include the 3452 227 of the publication publicity of solicitation contract purchaser with the B with the contract officer must ensure the clause of 3452 22771. Advertising award solicitation contract with the purchaser with the NDC with the contract officer must ensure the clause of 3452 227 72 with the non-disclosure agreements and all contracts simplified acquisitions federal contract under simplified acquisition threshold as appropriate. Q. The contracting officer must ensure the clause 34, 52, 227, and 73 limitation used to the scope of the government furnished information marked with restrictive legends into the contract for the third-party vendor for the require the access of the government furnished information, including other contract with the technical data, priority information, or software. 3428 bonds and insurance. 3428 insurance. 3311 solicitation for the contract cost liability insurance under the cost of reimbursement contracts. 311-2 the agency solicitation contract call with the contractor office must ensure the clause 3452 2228 7 required insurance L solicitation contracts over the cost reimbursement contract is contemplated. 3430 cost accounting standard administration. Alright, the 3432-101 cost accounting standards, program requirements, contract requirements, 201, 201-1, 201-5 waiver. Senior procurement executive is the head of agency for the purpose as far as 300, 201-5 A and B. 3431 contracting cost principle procedures. 3431A 3431 applicability. 101 objective of the senior procurement executive for the agency headed to the sign with the forest 31101. 3431-2 for the contract commercial organizations. 205 selected costs. 205-71 non-contract for the contractor office the manager for the clause of the 345-2 231-71 and invitational travel costs and solicitation contracts when travel to the federal contractor personnel will require for the performance of the contract. 3432 for the contracting and financing. 3400 scope. 006 reduction of suspension contract payments, finding fundings. 6-3 responsible for the department personnel with the responsibility for the writing with the apparent with respect to the intent for the contract to require for the name for the partial for the product for the payment the base for the fraud for the report must be made with the contracting officer for the inspector in general for investigation reports must outline with the events and acts with the condition for the intent for the apparent with the suspected violation include with all the pertinent documents. Assistant inspector for the investigation investigate with the appropriate officer for the inspector general will provide with the report with the senior procurement executive. Support 3432-4 for the advanced payment procurement over the other commercial acquisition. 402 general the head contracting authority delegate with authority determination. 432-402-C13 authority may be not redelegated. 407 interest of the head contracting authority designated for the official may authorize the advance payments to without interest as far as 32-407D. 3432-7 contract funding. 706 for the contract clause. 706-2 the clause for the limitation cost funds for the contracting officer the manager for the clause for 3452 for 32-7 the limitation cost funds with all solicitation contract where limitation costs when the limitation funds clause is utilized. The contracting officer must be inserted with the provision 3452-232-71 incremental funding solicitation costs and reimbursement contract using incremental funding is contemplated. Even the contracting officer must include insert for the clause 3452-232-72 limitation with the government obligation solicitation result for the incremental funding for the fixed price for the contract line item with the substance for the contract only with sufficient funds are not available to the Department of Time with the contract award with the option fully funded with the contract option with the contract line items and contract excluding option with the excluding option with the contract line item with the servable services does not exceed 1 year in length. The incremental funds with the funds available to the unexpired with the as of the date with the funds with the obligated to Congress of the otherwise authorized incremental funding. 2 impartial funded for the contract contained with the clause of the 3452-232-72 limitation government's obligation for the upon with learning with the contract approaching with the price of the contract limited with the funds allotted to the contract specified contract line items upon the receipt of the contract note for the paragraph B for the clause of 3452-232-72 contracting officer must properly obtain the funding information pertaining to the continuation of the applicable with the commercial line contract line item to the notified of the contractor writing the notification must provide additional funds have been allowed to specify amount the contractor line item if not further funded for the contractor applicable the contractor line that has been determined if the government contributed whether a lot additional funds for the contractor entitled for the contract term stop for the work of the contracted line items with the funding limited reach any work beyond the funding limited with the contractor risk upon learning of the partially funded contract will receive no further the funds contractor officer must promptly give the contractor written notice of the decision not to provide the funds. Contractor officer must ensure the solicitation funds with the contractor with the contractor line item for the total amount payable for the contractor event with the termination conveyance of the government does not except for the supply of the incremental funds for the contract contract line item funding for limited for each of the contractor officers have given the contractor notice of it be confirmed with the writing of the funds payable. The government personnel will encourage the contractor to continue with the work in absence for the fund with the incur with the violation of the reserve by statute section 3679 or Title 31 U.S. Code 1341 that may be subject to violate a triple and criminal penalty for the incremental fund by a fixed price contract for the current contract line items must be fully funded as soon as available. The contract officer for the maybe must for the information for the table of the paragraph of L with the cost of 3452 cents for the funds allotted with the most covered the cost termination after the contract item for the government conveyance for the contract must provide for the last day with the performance and subject of the contract off the concurrency. Contract officer may provide with the contract notification period for the paragraph B with the call for the 90, 30, or 60 days as appropriate. Alright, 3433 protest, dispute, and appeal. 3433-1 protest. 103 protest to the agency. All protest with the agency must do with the contract officer with the dinner with the solicitation for the part of the independent of the review of the protest with the as officer with the consideration contract with the officer protest with the silent and there for the contract officer with the decide with the protest with the department will not consider the appeal with the contracting officer with the protest the decision with the protest with the independent review the head contracting authority to decide with the protest the independent with the head contracting authority is not at least one level of the contracting officer if the head contracting authority is substantially involved with the procurement and senior procurement executive will decide with the protest. Contracting officer must include the provision of 3452-233-70 within solicitations. In F3 with the contracting officer of the head contracting authority must agree with the justification termination continue with the performance. 3437, servicing contract. 3437-1, servicing contract general 102 policy, serve the contract requires one or more items and items to supply with the forest. 37-1, so part of it applies only to the required services. 170, observe the administrative closure of the contract officer must ensure the cause for 3452-237-71, serve the administrative closure and solicitation contract for services. 3437-2 for the advisor assistant services. 204 guidelines for determining availability for the personnel, head contracting authority, agency head for the purpose of R37-204. 270 is serve as the consultant when call for the contracting officer must ensure the call 3452-237 for the service of the consultant with the solicitation resolve with the cost and reimbursement contract for the consultant with the service to not provide the service of federal student aid. 3437-6 of the performance-based acquisition. 601 the department policy with a new service the contract with the performance-based clearly identified with the deliverable the performance same with any deviation of the policy must be fully justified and ready approved by the head contracting authority. 3437-670 with the contract award determined contractor may be the performance-based contract task over the provided opportunity to significantly improve the benefit of the department of for the award contracting must approve the advance of the head contracting authority. 3439 Acquisition Information Technology. 3439-7 the Department of Requirements of Acquisition Information Technology. 701 Internet Protocol version 6 for the contract officer must ensure the cause for 3452-239 7 the Internet Protocol version 6. All solicitation result of the contract hardware and software. 3439-702 with the Department of Information Security with the privacy requirement. Contract officer must include with the clause for 3452-239 79 Department of Information Security and privacy requirements of all solicitation contracts. 3442 contract administrator for the audit services. 3442-70 contract monitoring 7001 litigation claims and causes. Contract officer must ensure for the cause of the 3452-242-70 litigation claim with all solicitation result of the cost reimbursement causes contracts. 3442-7002 for the delay cause. Contract officer must ensure for the cause of 3452-242-71 notice for the confirmation delays solicitation contract for the other than the purchase orders. 3442-71 accessible to meeting conference of the seminars for the person with a disability. 7101 policy cause for the department meeting with the conference for the all seminars except for the person with a disability with the contract officer must ensure for the call of 3452-242-73 accessible rate with the meeting of the conference seminar for the person with a disability solicitation contract with the conference contemplated. Alright, 3443 contract modification. 3443-1 general. 107 the contract clause. Contract officer may ensure for the call for the substantial same of the call for 3452-243 the key personnel for the all solicitation contract for the will be essential for contract officer to notify with the change with the name of the key personnel will take place for the contract. 345 3445 government property. 3445.3 authorizing you for the rental of the government property. 302 contract for the foreign government and international organization for the benefit of the foreign government for the international organization. Education of the production research of the property must be for the head contracting authority. Head contracting authority must determine the amount of the cost of the recovery for the rental charge, if any, paid for the fact for the circumstance each of the case. Alright, 3447, transportation. 3447, 7, foreign travel. 701, foreign travel, call for the contract off the messenger for the call. 3452, 247, 70, foreign travel, the solicitation result of the call for the reimbursement contracts. Foreign travel is contemplated. And then on to the last one, 3452, which should be pretty long. And we're going to cut the tape there.